Hello there, everybody. I'm Gen X Man, and today we're going to be doing a brief review on an absolute gem of a comic book I came across in listening to podcasts by awesome folks like Rock and Robbie Billups over at Pop Culture Philosophers, BJ Kicks at Comics Are Dope, and Nick over at Nick at Night. Go check out the channels if you haven't already. They do tons upon tons of comic reviews every week, which I find invaluable as I don't have the budget to go buying every comic that catches my eye every week. Kudos to these fellas. Thanks to these fellas for doing the legwork for me and everybody else who watches their content. But anyway, this is Uncanny X-Men, The Red Wave. It came out this year. The collected edition did. The tagline reads, "From the ashes of the Krakoan era," which it did not appeal to me. Feel free to share your thoughts on that in the comments below. The flagship X-Men title returns at last with a familiar team and an all-new direction. So Gail Simone took over the writing for Uncanny X-Men, which apparently they've just brought back. Wasn't aware that it had been discontinued or something of that nature. May have to do a little bit more research on that. But it's back, and now Gail Simone's at the helm. And I have a bit of a history with this title. I mean, obviously, as it was absolutely the most important comic to me growing up. Every time we hit the Cardinal Market and I hit the spinner rack, if there was an X-Men comic I didn't have, I got it. Chris Claremont was doing the writing back then with a variety of artists, and he is far and away the most influential comic writer for me growing up in the 80s and such. Back when he had his, I think it was 25 years, 15 years, something like that, his run on the X-Men. And man, I would never miss an issue. Now, obviously, they were disjointed. You never had anything in sequence down at the Cardinal because it was rural West Virginia. You got what you got. But every time I saw an X-Men title, I absolutely had to have that one. If I could only have one comic book that week, I was just like, that's the one. Man, man, I'd love to meet him someday. That'd be wild. Comment below if you've ever met the guy. I'd love to hear your stories about him. He's a hero from my childhood. But I knew about Gail Simone from her work on Red Sonja and Swords of Sorrow. Now there's a title I got to review someday. I got the big old collected volume. That is a wild comic, and I've always liked her work. The ones I've been exposed to. She's obviously done a ton of stuff I haven't been privy to, but I feel like I'm going to be start checking her stuff out. Let me know, if there's any please, yeah, recommendations by her and anybody else that worked on this title in the comments. Thank you very much in advance. But Marvel teamed her up with David Marquez and Javier Garron for the art, which is stunning. I mean, I'd describe it somewhere between Western manga, a little bit of Jim Lee, maybe. It's very, very dynamic, very eye-popping. I really can't say enough great things about the art. It is really good. This is really good stuff. Very good comic book art. And in fact, the series itself is sitting overwhelmingly in the five-star range on most review sites, and I have to agree, it's really enjoyable. It sucked me in early, as no spoilers, but some things were being done that boiled my bloods, to some beloved aspects of the X-Men where I was just like, oh, which then immediately were counterbalanced with events that I assume will eventually right all the wrongs, as a good comic book story eventually should. It's a bit of a heavy storyline to start off with, as the X-Men have been hurt and they're recovering and healing. Have the whole Krakoan thing where they had their island home. I don't know what happened, but yeah. But any fan of Chris Claremont, like myself, will instantly recognize this kind of story arc. It's been done many times before, and Gail Simone is actually nailing it. She's not a clone of Claremont, but she's one of the few writers I've come across that I've enjoyed penning the X-Men since him. And moreover, she's the first one that really feels like a spiritual successor to the man. I enjoyed a couple others with like what's that fella's name? Um, the guy did Avengers, the first two Avengers, Joss Whedon. And then, of course, you got Warren Ellis. Like, I enjoyed those runs, but they were not, I would not describe them as spiritual successors of Claremont's work, which, as I've said, was my favorite. So I highly endorse Gail Simone spinning more yarns. If you're listening, Marvel, and of course the rest of the team as well. These folks work really well together. I hope they stay together for a long time. This is fantastic. But this little number will run you about 15, $20. I got it for just under 15, I think. I tend to watch and hunt and try to find lesser known buyers and sellers and try to get a dollar off here or there. But yeah, as at the time of this recording, it ran 15 to 20. So not terrible as far as collecting volumes to go. It collects a relaunch of Uncanny X-Men from 2024, issues 1 through 6, plus material from X-Men 35 back in 2021 and Free Comic Day Blood Hunt X-Men from last year. Now that's we're talking in excess of 6 issues, which is more than the usual 5 or so issues you get with these collected things. It's a decent deal just on, bulk alone. But yeah, anyway, I just wanted to hop on here for a real quick video, give this collected volume a shout. I've just finished reading it and I'm loving it. And I was like, wow, I want to get the noise out. And, give this collected volume a shout out and an endorsement, as I know folks are always looking for good reads, and it's definitely one of those, especially if you have taste like me. This is so. But anyway, thanks everyone who stopped by and clicked on this here video. If I entertained you, I hope you'll give this video a like. Maybe consider hitting that subscribe button, as I do come out with several videos every week on a variety of topics. But I hope I entertained you and hope you all have a great day out there. Go read some comics. Have a good one.